It's another edition of the Leadership Dialogue podcast. I am Chikodinaka Dili. Well, today we'll be looking again into the issues brewing, the fresh issues brewing within the People's Democratic Party. It appears that the crisis in the party is far from being over. Now, on the latest front, we have issues coming from whether there will be a NEC meeting or whether there wouldn't be a NEC meeting. And on the other side, issues surrounding the Office of the National Secretary is another germane concern before Nigerians, and of course the need for a credible opposition party seem to be the headache for everyone, including the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has asked that the People's Democratic Party as well as the Labour Party resolve their issues in order to give Nigerians like an alternative party and of course a credible opposition. Well, this is what we'll be delving into today, and my guest in the studio is a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party. He is also a former presidential spokesperson under the administration of the former president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. He is Usar Sani. Good to have you join us, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, good to have you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
What's going on? Your party, we have, let's just say Nigerians have been looking forward to seeing how your party will resolve its internal crisis. But it appears that the PDP might be lacking leaders who could come together and mend fences.
Well, I will not disagree with you entirely on that. You know, this is a party that was bequeathed to us by very credible Nigerians who are well known for their forthrightness, their ability to look forward. They left a good party. Dr. Alex Ekweme was leading the G34. Alaja Adamu Chiroma, and quite a lot of very eminent Nigerians who formed the G34. We're looking forward to creating a political party that will stand the test of time. And initially, the party started with one of them as the chairman, who is Chief Solomon Dashipla. He happens to be the chairman, and he was his secretary was Dr. Vincent Oblavo. They piloted the party for a year, and after that, there were consistent handovers. There were no problems in the party. Barnabas Gimade came, and others came out to Bulafo, and the last was Adamu Mazu.
Your party has existed for over 2 decades, if I'm right.
Yeah.
And within this time, it appears, of course, like every other party, your party has had its own fair share of crises in the past. And those crises were quickly resolved. It didn't stay this long. But at this stance and at this moment, we are seeing a crisis that might see the end of the PDP.
Well, I don't see PDP is like the Beetle. There is, during our childhood days, there used to be a slogan that the Beetle never dies. And that is what the PDP is. The PDP will never die because it is a party rooted in the grassroots. The party did not just spring up, or they did not come together, just like the APC, bringing various groups together, like AMPP, ABGA, some part of ABGA, ACN, and CPC to form a political party. And of course, the NPDP, some people who were a break away from the PDP, who came and they formed a political party. The PDP, grew on its own. It has structures all over the country. The crisis of the PDP is not within the states. It is within the federal government. It is within the headquarters of the party. But at the state level, the PDP is waxing stronger, is very articulate, and people are continuously believing in the PDP to deliver.
But if the national headquarters of the PDP, the leadership of the party, is in disarray, what can we get
from
the states?
It's not that the national leadership is in disarray, because if it were, there would have been factions. Some people would have created themselves to say, okay, we are leaders. There is nobody who is challenging Damagum as the acting chairman or chairman. There is no any breakaway. But the crisis is merely disagreement, internal.
Internal disagreement within those who have been elected to lead the party, the National Working Committee.
Which the party is working hard. These issues would have been resolved long ago, if not for some vested interests. Now, those vested interests within the party are divided. There is the Atiku interest, there is the Wike interest, and of course, there was the Bala Mohammed interest. That is, when I say Bala Mohammed, I mean the Governors Forum. They were also having their own vested interest. So the issues were compounded more because most of the governors are of the view that Atiku is muzzling their chances of becoming president, because a governor who has finished his tenure wants to go further, and believe me, they believe that Atiku is blocking them because he naturally will win the PDP primaries, and so they will have no chance of competing, as presidential candidates. So that animosity grew within the PDP.
When you say the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar can easily win a primaries if one is conducted now, are you in any way inferring to the fact that perhaps he has the structure of your party in his palms, or he can outrightly decide what happens to your party?
No.
Your party does not have all the dissenting voices?
I'm not looking at all those issues. I'm looking at his capacity, his ability, and his entrenchment within the party. He is the one who has a national spread. Being a former vice president, I think when he was a former vice president, he was able to entrench quite a lot of people who are together with him. And so his reach is greater than all of this. These other people came much later. For instance, Nyesom Wike came in much later. He was nobody within the PDP. When Goodluck Jonathan was there, he was not even a full-fledged minister. He was a minister of state of education. However, when he became governor and he had quite a lot of resources within his reach, he was now able to navigate himself to try to be national in outlook. And when you look at Bala Mohammed, and even the rest governors, Bala was a national player as a minister of the FCT, but his reach was not that strong for him to be able to reach all over the country. It is now, as a governor, that he's making such moves to be able to be acceptable within the structures of the PDP across the country. And so if you take a holistic look at the matter, you will discover that Atiku has not only demonstrated it, he has even showed it clearly. In 2018 primaries in Port Harcourt, Nyesom Wike insisted that the convention must be taken to Port Harcourt.
That's in 2018.
In 2018, and it was taken to Port Harcourt, and he supported Waziri Tambuwal, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives. Having supported him, he went to Port Harcourt, believing that within his backyard he can maneuver, and be able to ensure that the Tambuwal wins. But the unfortunate thing is that Tambuwal was defeated by Atiku Abubakar. The northern elders sent General Gusau to the field, who now preached to every delegate that the choice of the north is Atiku. And the Atiku ultimately won. Now, in 2022 primaries, it was also a clash between Nyesom Wike and Atiku, and Tambol was individual. And Tambol decided to follow the northern agenda, by supporting Atiku and forgetting his friend Nyesom Wike. He supported Atiku, and Atiku defeated Wike. So you can see that Atiku has the magic wand to be able to navigate himself and be able to win the primaries. These are some of the contentious issues that the governors forum, are not in support, because they do not believe. That's why all form of arguments are propounded. It is the turn of the South. It is the turn of this. All these arguments are brought up to stop Atiku from contesting.
Now, without dwelling on the individuals, one thing I do know is that, like, for every political party, like you have with the APC, you have with Labour Party, several other parties, the PDP also has a constitution which was amended in 2017.
Yes.
And based on that constitution, it is there to help regulate the party and always put the party in good shape. Now, in recent time, the party has been in a state of quagmire. And one would wonder why the principles entrenched in this constitution were not called up to resolve most of the issues. Because if we have people who have outrightly, confidently, and, sagaciously flouted the constitution of the party, including involvement in anti-party activities, why is it that nobody among the NWC leadership or the NEC could call up the sections of constitution and reprimand these persons?
Yes, let me be very, very clear here. The problem of the PDP is not its constitution, because the constitution is very clear and very definitive. The constitution outlines how issues will be resolved. So the issues are not the constitution. It is the operators of the constitution. Now, the operators of the constitution are not motivated by the general interest of the party, but they are more motivated by the masters they serve, if I may put it that way. So they are not likely going to follow the constitution. They rather follow the interests entrenched by the people who put them there. Now, I will give you when the crisis started and why the constitution.
Just a minute before you go further. Why it's good a thing that you have said that the issues in the PDP are not issues based on constitution, but it's an individual or man-made crisis in the party. And of course, you have also mentioned that one of the major challenges is the operators who have refused to abide by the constitution.
Exactly.
And then that brings me to my question. If the operators refuse to abide by the constitution, does that in any way put the PDP as an institution like you have earlier mentioned it to be? Because you made a comparison statement at your opening statement that unlike the APC, which is more like an arrangement of different political parties or different groups coming together, the PDP was crafted through some regulations, and it became an institution, not just a political party. With what is going on now, can you say the same thing of the party?
Well, I'm not dismissing the PDP, but I'm dismissing the operators. I'm dismissing the operators because the operators are working at cross purposes with the real intention of our founding fathers and the constitution of the party as given to us by ourselves. Now, the 2017 constitution of the PDP, which is currently in operation, is faultless. It does not even need any amendment. Otherwise, it would have been amended, at any of our conventions that we have held so far. But there were no amendments because the constitution spells out how crises can be tackled, and what should be done. But as it is now, we have operators who have been placed there by certain interest groups, and they do not want to disappoint those interest groups. And so they are working for those interest groups instead of working for the interests of the party. And those interest groups keep fueling behind the scene this crisis and refusing to allow it to go. So the PDP itself is rooted in crisis, not because it wants to engulf itself in crisis, but because other personalities who are very much interested in either seeing to the downfall of the PDP or are interested in promoting another presidential candidate within or outside the party does not want the PDP to function optimally. So every measure is taken to bring it down.
At the moment, who is the national secretary of your party?
At the moment, we don't have a national secretary.
How so?
Because the national secretary of our party was elected at the last convention.
Absolutely.
And when he was elected at the last convention, he chose by himself to contest for the governorship of Imo State.
Does that contravene your constitution?
No, it does not. He has his unfettered freedom to contest for any position of his choice within the country. But the fact of the matter is that you must relinquish one to go for the other. It is even within the general constitution of Nigeria that you cannot hold two offices at the same time. Mm-hmm. So if you are going for one, you have to leave the other one. Now, coming back to Anyanwu is a heavyweight within the party, being its national secretary. He is the scribe of the party. And so he knows the procedure. He knows he has to resign. But because they have, a very good working relationship with the acting national chairman, they are coming from the same direction, from the same influence peddling, and so forth. They allowed him to circumvent the law and refuse to obey the provisions of Section 47, Section 5 of our Constitution, which clearly states that a party official who is not contesting election but wants to resign must give 30 days notice. However, if you are vying for any position and you want to resign, you abide by the guideline of that election. And in the guidelines of that election, it gives 7 days notice for such an official to give prior to his resignation. And that resignation is not merely to resign. He has to attach it. It has to be part of the items they are going to take to INEC to show that, yes, this man has resigned. But all those things were bypassed. Those things were not taken cognizance of. He went to contest and he lost woefully. Now, having lost, he decided that he wants to come back. You see, the point is, it means that the party is not structured for him to follow those guidelines. He can decide to go and contest and decide to come back at any time he wants.
But a document written by the National Secretary, or the embattled National Secretary of the PDP, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, made the rounds at the peak of the crisis, surrounding his office. And then that document reads an excuse, more like permission to run for a position. Because you are here saying that he never gave any notice, but that document accurately shows that a notice was given. Or perhaps the NWC did not approve.
No, it is not. Our constitution didn't say that you have to give an excuse.
But a notice, he wrote a notice was given.
No, it is not a notice. You are not expected to give any notice. You are not, when you do something which is outside the constitution, that is ultra vires. It is completely out of the scope of our constitution. And so you cannot make it a law. Now, the Constitution clearly spells out, and the guideline, that you have to resign. That is the notice. When you tender a resignation, you are giving the party notice that I'm contesting another election. No, and so I'm leaving my own seat. Now, a document circulating, seeking for notice or giving notice, or is entirely not a document that one even needs to refer to, because it is not within the concept and context of our Constitution.
But how is it that this became an issue now? Why was it not an issue then when that letter was written?
Well, when that letter was written, there was no indication that the man will likely come back and reclaim his position. Because at that time, the party had already directed the Southeast Caucus to bring a replacement. And the South, which is consistent with section 47, subsection 6 of our Constitution, which says that if there is any vacancy within the party, the place where that person who was the last holder was coming from is the place that will give the replacement for him. And so the Southeast Caucus was given the party now does not even need to declare, because if they say, okay, you Southeast Caucus, bring a replacement, it has already shown that there is a vacancy. You can't bring a vacancy, you can't bring a replacement where there is no vacancy. So the Southeast Caucus now held a meeting and brought in SKE Okoye as a replacement. Now when Anyanwu came back, the tussle was who is the National Secretary. Now, SKE Okoye ordinarily ought to be the National Secretary, but Anyanwu is contesting. Anyanwu went to an Abuja High Court seeking for the court to pronounce him as the National Secretary, which the court did. If he was the National Secretary, he does not need any validation of any court to pronounce him as National Secretary. He would just have come quietly and resume responsibility. But because he knows that his absence was in violation of the constitution of the party, he's going to go and contest that election. Due process was not followed, and that the ability to contest that was within the structure of the party, and that the party has already, perhaps by their action, declared that that seat is vacant. He wants to now go, he went to the court to tell the party that seat is not vacant, and that he's the rightful occupant of that seat. That's why he went to court.
That's because he came into that position through an election.
Well, our constitution...
So apparently, if he's to be eased out, he should be eased out through a national convention. Isn't that what it's supposed to be?
That is where the interpretation is fallacious. Now, I say this with all sense of responsibility, because our constitution says, section 47, subsection 6, says, if a vacancy exists, this is how you fill it. It didn't say that you have to go to conduct a national convention before you can fill that position.
But in this case, that position was not vacant in the sense that the occupant did not tender a resignation.
No.
Isn't that what it was?
The position is vacant. Whether he tenders a position, a written
document
or not. Now, let us be more hypothetical on this matter. Supposing he wins the governorship of
Imo State,
what will happen? Will he still come back and become National Secretary? One. Or will he have to retender a letter resigning as National Secretary because he's now the Imo State governor? Certainly he will not do that. Automatically he begins to act in the function of the governor of Imo State. Then the party will now be left with the responsibility to fill that vacancy. So a vacancy is there. By any means, there is a vacancy. Now, whether it is pronounced or hidden, for ulterior motives, there is a vacancy.
All right, we'll just go on a short break, and when we come back, the conversation on this subject continues. And this time around, we'll be delving straight into the recent crisis, brewing in the party. To stay.
Nigeria is at a turning point. Young people are rising, demanding change. If you believe in justice, strong leadership, and real reform, then it's time to take a stand.
At LJE Nigeria, we're not just observers, we're builders. We're tackling leadership deficits, advocating for justice reforms, and driving economic advancements for all.
As a volunteer, you won't just watch, you will be a part of it. You will gain access to powerful seminars, conferences, and mentorships from professionals who believe in your potential.
No matter who you are, whether you're a student, an entrepreneur, a professional, or someone who cares, there's a place for you here.
Network with passionate change makers, build skills, and step into leadership.
Join LJE Nigeria today. Let's lead with truth. Let's build with courage. Let's rise for Nigeria. Become an LJE volunteer today and be the change Nigeria needs. Follow all our social media handles for more details.